Hello and welcome to the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer with RealTime Fantasy Sports, and on today's show, I'm going to give you 5 of my fantasy takeaways from Week 7 of the fantasy football season. Definitely an interesting week. There was a ton of high-scoring fantasy performances in this week. I should say several players went off big. Christian McCaffrey, Jamar Chase. Just a lot of big-time performances. Hopefully you were on the positive side of things in Week 7 and came out victorious. I'm going to give you 5 of my takeaways from this week from a fantasy perspective. And my first one is, I think the Dolphins are going to clean house sooner than later. This team is a complete mess. Tua Tagovailoa was awful in this game against the Browns. He was intercepted 3 times, just made some awful passes. He got benched for Quinn Ewers. The team seems to be giving up on head coach Mike Daniels. Just been some weird stuff said in the locker room during the week and after this game. It's just not a good situation. And from a fantasy perspective, I think Devin Achane and Jalen Waller are really the only fantasy relevant players. I know Darren Waller's been okay, but now he got banged up in this game. Tua has been all over the map, but it's just not a good situation. I think it's time to clean house in Miami. And I would not be surprised if it is done sooner than later. My next fantasy takeaway from this week is I'm becoming concerned about Saquon Barkley. Never thought I'd be saying that, but I am. This past week in this game, he had 18 carries for just 44 yards. He had just a catch in the game. He has less than double-digit fantasy points 2 straight games and 3 of 5. And I'm not talking 20-plus points. I'm talking double-digit points. So he has less than 10 points 3 of 5 games. You just do not expect this from Saquon Barkley. The offensive line just is not doing a good job at all in Philadelphia right now. And he hasn't been heavily involved in the passing game, which is a concern also. That's hurting his fantasy floor. You can't give up on him and bench him. You got to keep playing him, but I am concerned. To put it in perspective, Barkley has not had one game with 20-plus fantasy points. Christian McCaffrey has done that every game this year. Every game. So Barkley's just been a complete bust so far. I think he can get it going at some point, but they need to start blocking better, getting him more involved in the passing game for that to happen. We'll see. We'll see. But I am concerned right now if I'm a Barkley owner. My next fantasy takeaway is Drake May might end up being the best quarterback of his class. I don't think any of us thought that would be the case after the draft happened last year, but he's been phenomenal. He is playing some great football. In this game this past week, 21 of 23 for 222 yards and 2 touchdowns without a turnover. He was nearly flawless. He has 14 total touchdowns on the season to just 2 interceptions, 5 of 7 games with 20-plus fantasy points. He's doing it all right now. He's accurate. He's throwing a great deep ball. He's even running the ball well. He has 200 rushing yards. And quite frankly, they don't have that elite group of receivers for him to work with as well. So if they start improving that unit, May could be even better. He's just been absolutely unbelievable this year, and he's going to be a fantasy factor for years to come. My next fantasy takeaway is Javvante Williams might be the biggest fantasy surprise for me this year. He ran 19 times for 116 yards and a touchdown in Week 7. He has 100-yard games, 2 of 3, at least 13 fantasy points, all but a game. He looks absolutely explosive, great moves in space, running with power. I think he's going to end up earning a big extension. You know how Jerry Jones is. He kind of likes to take care of his players when they start playing well for him, and I think Javvante Williams is going to be a guy that could end up getting a big extension for him. I know Micah Parsons, that didn't work out too well for him, but I think it could for Javvante Williams, and he's been unbelievable. I'm not selling high on him if I'm a fantasy owner. I'm keeping him in this explosive offense. He looks absolutely fantastic. My last takeaway for Week 7 is it's time for the Raiders to make a change at quarterback. Geno Smith has been awful recently. He was just 10 of 16 for 67 yards without a touchdown in this game, and they benched him late in the game for Kenny Pickett. For the season, Geno Smith, 10 interceptions to 7 touchdowns, less than 200 passing yards, 2 straight games and 3 of 4. Offense needs a spark. It's absolutely awful right now. I don't think Pickett can do any worse, and I would not be surprised if they make a change there. And I think it would be beneficial from a fantasy perspective to do that. All right, those are my 5 fantasy takeaways for week 7 of the fantasy football season. Hopefully, a lot of success this week. Won your games, came out on top. This has been Jeff Paur for Real Time Fantasy Sports.